I don't really know how to start this, and maybe that's why I've avoided talking about it for so long. Sometimes I catch myself speaking alone in the kitchen, like I'm rehearsing how to tell someone what happened. But the truth is, nothing prepares you to relive the moment you watch the person you love most slip away, only to realize he'd been carrying a truth heavy enough to break the both of us long before his heart gave out. I guess I should begin with a memory. People say memories soften with time, but some stay sharp, like glass. One I keep returning to happened on a Sunday morning. I remember sunlight coming through the window, warming my legs while I brewed coffee. He walked into the kitchen humming off-key, kissing the back of my neck like he always did. At that time, I truly believed we were living our happiest chapter. But now, knowing everything I know, that moment feels different. I look back and wonder, was that humming a distraction? Was he fighting pain behind that smile? And why didn't I notice? Why didn't I insist on noticing? Back then, if someone asked me how my marriage was, I'd say it was peaceful, safe, predictable. I liked to think I knew everything about him. He had this way of touching my shoulder when he wanted my attention, of laughing quietly at his own jokes, of pretending to hate the stray cats I fed but secretly leaving food for them at night. He was the kind of man who made the world feel softer. And maybe that's why the first sign didn't alarm me. It was a cough. Just a dry, persistent cough he brushed off with an easy smile. He blamed the humidity or the air conditioning at work. I remember sitting beside him on the couch, my ear resting against his chest, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. It sounded normal, strong, alive. And I told myself not to worry. He made it so easy not to worry. Maybe that was the problem. The second sign came a few months later. We were carrying groceries up the stairs when he suddenly stopped, gripping the railing, his face tightening for just a second. A flash of discomfort, maybe pain, but gone quickly, like it had been replaced by one of his practiced, familiar smiles. He said he'd twisted his ankle earlier that day. I believed him. Of course I did. When you love someone, you want to believe the words coming out of their mouth. You want trust to be simple. Now I know that moment should have been a red flag. But instead it became one more memory I replay at night, whispering to myself, why didn't you push harder? The truth hid behind gestures too gentle to question. Still, there were moments, small ones, that unsettled me. Like how he'd sneak out of bed, thinking I wouldn't notice. Or how I'd hear him in the bathroom, breathing heavily, trying to steady himself before coming back to lie beside me. Or the way he flinched when I hugged him too tightly. I'd ask if something was wrong, and he always said the same thing. I'm fine, just tired. He said it so naturally, so convincingly, it became a mantra. I didn't see the cracks forming beneath his calm. Months passed and life settled into routine. I worked, he worked, we laughed, we argued, we cooked late dinners together. And the strange thing is, he looked happy. Genuinely happy. Sometimes happier than I'd seen him in years. As if every second mattered more to him. As if he was savoring moments I didn't realize were numbered. And then came the night everything subtly shifted. It happened after dinner. I was washing dishes while he dried them, something we'd done together 1,000 times. He was quiet, not in a distant way but thoughtful. He kept pausing, staring at me like he was memorizing my face. I laughed and asked if he'd finally realized I was too pretty for him. That's the kind of joke he normally loved. But he didn't laugh. Instead, he put the towel down, walked behind me, and wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. You know I love you, right? He murmured. Of course I do, I said, smiling. What's with the sudden romance? He didn't answer. He just held me a little tighter. That silence should have meant something. It should have echoed louder. But I kissed his cheek and went back to rinsing plates, unaware I was standing inside the quiet beginning of an ending I never saw coming. He changed after that. Not drastically. He was too careful for that, but enough that my heart started noticing what my eyes tried to ignore. He took longer to get out of bed. He avoided carrying heavy bags. He'd pause mid-conversation, pressing his fingers lightly against his ribs or just under them, where the pain must have been spreading. I'd catch him wincing when he thought I wasn't looking. At some point, I realized he hadn't gone to a doctor in years. Or rather, he hadn't let me know if he had. He used to show me every appointment reminder, every test result, even the most boring routine checkups. But suddenly there was nothing. No envelopes, no emails, no comments about blood pressure or cholesterol. It was like all medical evidence of his existence had vanished. And yet, I still didn't push him. I still trusted him. Now that trust tastes bitter in my mouth. I remember the night I finally confronted him. I had spent the entire day overthinking, obsessing about his quiet changes. By the time we sat down for dinner, my nerves were pulling at me like strings. I barely tasted the food. I watched him cut his steak into tiny pieces, his hand trembling just slightly. "Honey," I said, trying to sound casual, "when was the last time you got a checkup?" He looked up at me, fork suspended midair. Just a second, one small second of hesitation, but enough for me to feel the air shift. "I'm fine," he replied too quickly, too firmly. I didn't smile. I didn't let it go. "You've been tired. You've been in pain. I've seen you." He put the fork down. His shoulders dropped. He sighed, running a hand through his hair like he always did when he was cornered. "It's nothing serious," he said gently. "Just stress." "That's not true," I whispered. "I know you. Something's wrong." He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes softening with what I thought was love. Looking back, I realized it was something else. It was grief. He reached across the table, took my hand, squeezed it. "I don't want you to worry. You already carry enough." That was his answer. That was all he gave me. And instead of demanding more, instead of digging deeper, I just nodded, accepting his half-truth like it was enough. I hate remembering that. Weeks later, everything came undone. It was past midnight when I heard him collapse in the bathroom. The sound still rings in my head. A heavy, terrifying thud followed by a silence so thick I felt it in my bones. I ran to him, heart pounding, and found him on the cold tiles, struggling to breathe, his skin pale, his shirt drenched in sweat. He tried to sit up but couldn't. "I'm okay," he whispered. Those were the last words he said before losing consciousness. That night marked the end of the version of him I thought I knew. At the hospital, I sat in the cold waiting room while doctors rushed him away from me. Every second stretched like hours. I stared at the clock, gripping my coat, trying to breathe normally, telling myself he'd be fine. He had to be. But when the doctor returned, the expression on his face told me everything. They found tumors. Advanced. Spread across organs they couldn't repair. He hadn't been okay for a long time. Years, the doctor said. Years of knowing. Years of hiding. Years of pretending he was fine because he didn't want to burden me. Those were the doctor's words. Burden me. As if loving someone through their sickness is a burden. As if watching someone you love die without ever being given the chance to fight beside them isn't the cruelest burden of all. I remember walking into his hospital room, seeing him lying there hooked to machines, his eyelids fluttering as he struggled to wake up. I stood beside his bed, tears streaming silently as I held his hand. I kept replaying our years together, trying to understand how he had hidden something so big, so devastating, right in front of me. When he finally opened his eyes, he looked confused at first. Then he saw me, and something in his expression broke. "I'm sorry," he whispered, barely audible. But I didn't want his apology. I wanted answers. I wanted truth. I wanted the chance to scream, to shake him, to ask him how he could let me sleep beside him every night while death slowly grew inside him. But I couldn't scream. I couldn't even speak. I just held his hand and cried. He asked me to come closer, so I leaned in, brushing his hair back gently. His voice was fragile, weathered by years of secrets. "There's more," he said. I didn't understand at first. More? What more could there be beyond the betrayal of silence? Beyond dying in front of me without warning? He closed his eyes, gathering what little strength he had left, and repeated, "There's something else I never told you." And that sentence, that single trembling sentence, opened a different kind of fear inside me. One deeper than death. One darker than sickness. A fear that the man I loved was more of a stranger than I ever imagined. He drifted into sleep before he could finish. And I was left there, beside him, drowning in questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. The nurses told me to rest, but I couldn't. I spent the entire night watching him, afraid his chest would stop rising if I looked away. Every beep of the machine echoed like a countdown. Every second felt borrowed. I held his hand so tightly I worried I might hurt him, but he didn't wake. At one point, I started whispering things I'd never said aloud, fearful things, angry things, loving things. I told him I wasn't ready to lose him, that I would have stayed by his side through the worst of it, that I would have chosen him over and over even if the ending was always going to be heartbreak. But he didn't answer. And when he finally did wake again, near dawn, his eyes clouded with pain and exhaustion, he looked at me like he was staring at both his greatest love and his greatest regret. "I thought I was protecting you," he said softly. Then he took a slow breath. And just before he drifted out again, he whispered the beginning of the truth he'd been hiding all along. "I wasn't just sick. There's something I did. Something I tried to keep from you." He never finished the sentence. His eyes closed. The machines continued beeping steadily. And I stayed frozen in that chair, clutching his hand, terrified of the story he was about to unravel. I didn't know it then, but his final words would reveal a truth far deeper and far more devastating than any illness he ever carried. And that truth would change everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the man I vowed to spend my life with. I didn't sleep at all that night. I don't think my mind even allowed me to blink for more than a second at a time. I kept replaying his words over and over, trying to assemble them into something that made sense. I wasn't just sick. There's something I did. The sentence clung to me like cold air, slipping under my skin, paralyzing every thought. When morning finally seeped into the room through the narrow hospital blinds, I felt a sense of dread I couldn't shake, a strange mixture of wanting him to wake up so I could demand the truth, and wishing he'd stay asleep so I wouldn't have to hear it. Sounds awful, I know, but that's what fear does. Turns you inside out until nothing feels right anymore. A nurse came in to check his vitals. She smiled at me in that gentle, practiced way nurses do, but her eyes stayed heavy, tired. I think she knew. I think everyone around me knew the truth I was refusing to let settle. He didn't have much time left. She told me to get breakfast, to stretch my legs, to breathe real air for a few minutes. But I couldn't leave. The idea of stepping out of that room, even for a moment, felt like betrayal. What if he woke up and I wasn't there? What if he died while I was gone? So I stayed. Hours passed before his eyes fluttered open again. When he finally looked at me, he tried to smile, but his lips barely moved. I leaned forward, brushing my fingers against his cheek. His skin felt thin, almost transparent, like if I pressed too hard I might break him. "Hey," I whispered. He blinked slowly, focusing on my face. "You're still here." "Of course I am." He took a breath, a trembling, shallow breath, and his expression tightened with pain. I reached for the small button to call the nurse, but his fingers closed weakly around my wrist. "No," he murmured. "Stay. Please just stay." So I stayed. Minutes passed before he spoke again, and when he did, his voice was fragile, yet heavy with something that made my stomach twist. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he whispered. "I wanted to leave this world still looking strong in your eyes." "Don't," I said, shaking my head as tears filled my vision. "Please don't say things like that." He coughed, quiet but agonizing, and when he finally regained enough breath, he turned his gaze toward the window. Light cut across the bed, illuminating the thin lines on his face. Lines I had never noticed before. Lines carved by years of pain he carried alone. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "About everything." I swallowed hard. "Then tell me now. Please. Just tell me." His eyes closed as if gathering strength from the darkness behind his eyelids. And when he spoke again, the words came slowly, each one shaped by regret. "I've been sick for a long time, longer than you think." "I know," I whispered. "The doctor told me." He shook his head gently. "No, not just the tumors. There was something before that. Something I brought on myself." My heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" He opened his eyes again and looked at me with a sorrow so deep I felt it echo in my own chest. "I hid the symptoms when they first appeared. I refused treatment. I refused tests. I pushed everything aside because I thought I deserved whatever was happening to me." I froze. "Deserved it? Why would you say that?" His lips trembled. He looked away. "Because I wasn't the man you believed I was." A coldness spread through me. "You're scaring me." He swallowed, the movement strained. "I thought hiding my illness was the worst lie I told you. But it wasn't." The room seemed to shrink around us, tightening like a noose. I felt my breath hitch. "I need you to listen," he said. "And I need you to try to understand before you judge me." My entire body went tense. "Just tell me." He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I felt my heart brace itself. "You remember the year I lost my job?" he asked. I nodded. "Of course. You said the company downsized." He nodded weakly. "That wasn't the whole story." I leaned closer. "What do you mean?" He swallowed again, struggling against the dryness in his throat. "I was let go because I made a mistake. A serious one. I was working on a project that involved funding a large amount of money, and there was an error mine. That caused the company a loss they couldn't recover from." My eyebrows pulled together. "You told me it was downsizing. You said it wasn't your fault." "I lied," he whispered. "Okay," I said, trying to stay calm. "A mistake at work isn't a reason to think you deserve to die." "That's not all," he said, voice cracking. "The mistake didn't just cost the company money. It cost someone their livelihood." My mind raced. "Who?" He looked ashamed, utterly destroyed. "Your brother." The world seemed to tilt around me. My brother?" I repeated, hearing my own voice distort. He nodded faintly. "He was part of the team. When they needed someone to blame, someone else to take responsibility, I didn't stop them. I let them think he was involved. I didn't speak up. And he was fired because of it." I felt something inside me collapse, quietly, violently. "You let my brother take the fall for something you did?" I whispered. His eyes filled with tears. "I thought I could fix it. I thought I could make it up to him somehow. But the more time passed, the harder it became to confess. And when he struggled to get another job, when he started blaming himself, I couldn't live with it." I pulled my hand back without thinking. He must have felt it. His gaze flickered with pain deeper than his illness. "That guilt," he continued. "That was the beginning of everything. The stress, the sleepless nights, the avoidance. I think that's when the sickness started. I carried it inside me long before the tumors appeared." I couldn't speak. My throat felt too tight. The man beside me, the man I loved for so many years, the man I trusted more than anyone, had destroyed part of my family without ever telling me. "And you let me stand there," I whispered, "comforting my brother, helping him through one of the worst moments of his life, while you were the reason for all of it?" Tears slipped down his face. I hated myself for it. Every single day. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was afraid you'd leave," he said. "Afraid you'd see me the way I saw myself." Silence. Heavy. Cold. His breath hitched. His chest rose and fell unevenly, the monitors around him responding with soft, rhythmic beeps. "I didn't want you to know," he whispered. "Not because I didn't trust you, but because I couldn't bear the thought of you looking at me with hate." I stared at him, torn between the love that tethered me to him and the anger that pulsed through every vein in my body. "You should have told me," I said. "You should have trusted me with the truth instead of letting it rot inside you." "I know," he murmured. "And I'm so sorry. I'm so tired of holding it." He reached out weakly, fingers trembling, as if hoping I'd take his hand again. I didn't. Not yet. I needed a moment, not to think but simply to breathe, to remember where I was, to remember that he was dying, that this was the last conversation we would ever have. He watched me, eyes wet, voice brittle. "Can you forgive me?" I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because forgiveness is not a button you press. It's a process. And right then all I felt was devastation. He nodded slowly, as if he understood. His hand dropped back to the blanket. After a long pause, he whispered, "There's something else." My heart stuttered again. "What now?" "I started treatment years ago. Secretly. I didn't want you to know. I told myself I was protecting you, but really, I was ashamed. I thought if I could get better before you noticed, then maybe I wouldn't have to tell you the rest." I closed my eyes, tears burning behind them. "I failed," he said. "At everything." "No," I said finally, voice cracking. "You didn't fail everything. You loved me. Maybe in a broken, misguided way. But you loved me." He looked at me, truly looked at me, like those words were the last gift he'd ever receive. "I did," he whispered. More than anything. His eyelids fluttered. His breaths grew shallower. Panic surged through me. "Honey," I said, touching his arm, my voice trembling. "Stay with me. Please. Don't go yet." He opened his eyes one last time. Pain flickered. Then something softer. A strange peace. "I needed you to know the truth," he murmured. "I didn't want to leave the world still lying." My tears fell uncontrollably. "I wish you had told me earlier." "I know." His lips quivered into a faint, heartbreaking smile. "But I'm glad you're here." His fingers brushed mine, weak and fleeting. "I love you," he whispered. And with that final breath, soft, almost airy, his hand slipped from my grasp. The monitor changed its rhythm. Nurses rushed in. Someone pulled me aside. Someone said things I didn't hear. All I remember is staring at him, his face still, his chest no longer rising, and wishing for one more second, one more breath, one more chance to tell him I loved him too, even in my anger, even in my sadness, even in the storm he left inside me. But I never got that second. Days passed in a blur after that. I moved through the world like a ghost, answering questions mechanically, signing papers, arranging things I never wanted to arrange. People brought food, offered condolences, told me how strong I was. I wasn't strong. I was broken. And then, a week after his funeral, I found the envelope. It was inside his desk drawer, taped to the underside of the wooden panel, hidden where I never would have looked if I hadn't needed scissors. My name was written on the front. Nothing else. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside was a letter. His handwriting, messy in some places, shaky in others, filled the page. In it, he explained everything again. The guilt. The mistake. The reason he hid it. The pain of watching me support my brother without ever telling me the truth. The fear that consumed him. The belief that he deserved whatever illness came for him. And at the end, he wrote something I wasn't prepared for. "I know I hurt you. I know you may never see me the same way again. But if there's one thing I beg of you, please, don't let my mistake destroy what's left of your life. Love again someday. Find joy. Don't let my darkness swallow you too." In that moment, I cried harder than I had at the hospital. Not because the pain was greater, but because the love was. He had been wrong in so many ways. But he had also been human. Flawed. Scared. Trying, failing, trying again. Just like any of us. And maybe that was the truth I needed most. In the months that followed, I visited my brother and told him everything. I expected anger, hatred, rejection. But instead he hugged me. Long, tight. And he whispered that he had always suspected something was off, that he had forgiven the situation long before he ever knew the details. Healing didn't happen overnight. Didn't happen in weeks. Came slowly, quietly, in small moments. Like the first time I laughed again. The first time I slept through the night. The first time I walked past his photo without crying. I still miss him. I still think about what our life could have been if he had trusted me sooner. If he had shared his fear instead of carrying it alone. But I also learned something important. Love isn't about perfection. It's about truth. About facing the darkness together, even when it terrifies you. If I had one wish, it wouldn't be to erase what he did. It wouldn't be to rewrite the ending. It would be to go back to that night in the kitchen, the one where he hugged me for too long, and tell him I was strong enough to carry whatever truth he was hiding. That we could have faced it as one. But wishes don't change the past. They only teach us how to live differently in the future. And so I carry his memory, not as the man who lied, not as the man who hid, but as the man who finally chose truth when it mattered most. A man who loved me even in his mistakes. A man whose last words shattered me so I could finally rebuild myself whole. And maybe that's why I'm telling this story now. Not for sympathy, not for closure, but because truth deserves to be spoken before it's too late. And love, even broken, deserves to be remembered. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from secrets kept in the name of love. But sometimes those same secrets teach us how to live honestly again. I'm still learning. I'm still healing. And somehow, I know he'd be proud of that.